Picture the Western Front in the winter of 1916. The air smells of wet earth, cordite and rot. A young infantryman, boots soaked through, teeth clenched against the cold, grips his rifle in a trench barely wide enough to turn around in. He has not slept in 2 days, and yet he stands, he watches, he endures. This is not a story of superhuman soldiers. It is a story of technique, discipline, and ingenuity born from desperation. World War I forged some of the most effective and most forgotten fieldcraft in human history. Today, we pull it out of the mud. Section 1. The Trench Environment. Hell with a drainage problem. Understanding how soldiers stayed awake requires understanding why staying awake felt like the only sane option. The Western Front was a sensory assault, ground vibrating with artillery around the clock, air carrying the moan of the wounded. Every instinct screamed react. That ambient threat was, paradoxically, the soldier's first defense against sleep. The nervous system, saturated in cortisol and adrenaline, locked the body in perpetual readiness, alert on the surface, emptied out underneath. Let the war keep you awake. It was the most primitive tool in the World War I fieldcraft kit. Section 2. Tactical Sleep. The combat nap, sleeping in 10-minute windows. The British, French, and German armies all arrived at the same conclusion. Sleep could not be eliminated, only rationed. Soldiers snatched 10 to 20-minute bursts sitting upright, rifle across the knees, back against the fire step. Short cycles that restored alertness without triggering the deep sleep that left a man disoriented and dangerous. The buddy system formalized this into fieldcraft pairs, rotated 30-minute watches through the night, each resting while the other held the line. A section of half-rested men was far more effective than a section of completely exhausted ones. The noise never stopped, not once in 4 months. You stopped hearing it eventually, but your body never did. Section 3. Shelter, food, and hygiene, calories, char, and, well, the ritual of staying human. Dugouts carved into trench walls, reinforced with salvaged timber and roofed with oilcloth, provided thermal mass and wind protection that kept bodies functional through those freezing nights. Staying awake without fuel was a losing proposition. The British Army's ration system delivered roughly 4,000 calories per man per day, and the daily rum ration was administered with the reverence due a medicine, raising core temperature and blunting anxiety without impairing motor control. Water, often contaminated, was boiled over brazier fires in a ritual soldiers called making char. It was warmth, a task, and the grounding normalcy of something hot to hold. Hygiene was morale, and morale was alertness. Mandatory foot inspections, the application of whale oil, the act of shaving when water allowed, these were not indulgences. A man who kept himself human kept himself functional. Senior officers who enforced grooming standards understood this instinctively. Section 4. Mental Techniques. The architecture of an occupied mind. When the body began to fail, and after 48 hours it always did, soldiers fell back on mental task loading. They sang under their breath, recited poetry, ran through weapon mechanics in silent, tactile inventory. The most effective technique, described independently in letters from British, French, Australian and Canadian soldiers alike, was subdividing time. Rather than facing 12 more hours of guard duty, A soldier fixed his mind on the next concrete milestone, the next ration, the next rotation, the sound of relief coming down the trench. The future was unbearable. The next 20 minutes was survivable. Modern Special Forces units and endurance athletes have since codified this exact reframing. The men of 1916 discovered it in the mud by necessity, with everything on the line. Closing. What the mud remembers. A century has passed since the last fire was stamped out in the last trench on the Western Front. The barbed wire has rusted back into the earth. But the techniques remain, encoded in military doctrine, in bushcraft traditions, in the instincts of anyone who has pushed past the edge and found something functional on the other side. What World War I soldiers understood was that survival is a system: tactical rest, thermal shelter, shared purpose, and the discipline to maintain ritual when ritual is all you have left. These are those tools. This is that knowledge, and it belongs to everyone willing to learn it. If this episode moved you, share it. Subscribe to Fieldcraft Chronicles for cinematic deep dives into the forgotten survival wisdom of history's greatest soldiers and fieldcraft masters, built for history lovers, bushcraft learners, and anyone who believes the old ways still have something left to teach us.